I'm Dr. Danielle Conway, integrative veterinary nutritionist, founder of Verity Pet Nutrition, where you will find truth in every bite. Welcome to our corner of the internet where you will find the truth. No flashy gimmicks, just the pure truth about what you feed your pet. In this episode, we're going to talk about the problem with the studies show claim, aka research washing. It sounds very, very convincing, and here's how you can arm yourself to spot this when it's occurring. When a company tries to back up their product, as they should try to back up their product and justify its inclusion into your pet's wellness plan. If it's something that you're going to be putting into your pet on a daily basis, if it's a consumable, they should be able to back it up with both safety and efficacy data. Ideally, in a perfect world, they would do studies on their own, independently funded, to show that their product, at the doses they've chosen, and the vehicles for the product, whether it's a food or a powder or chew, is safe. The second step is they should take it further and show that it's actually effective. What are the product claims? And they need to be able to quantifiably show that in the patient population expected. So if it's a dog product, it should be in dogs. If it's a cat product, it should be in cats. It doesn't have to be in laboratory animals. It can be with animals at home. They should be able to substantiate and back up their claims. However, that is very expensive. Those types of studies cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. And so an alternative to that is companies should at least go and look at the data that we already have. We already have a fairly robust body of evidence out there. It's not perfect. We need more, always need more. So we always need more researchers. However, we have a decent, robust body to start with. So we can look at each individual ingredient, what's known about it, what's known about the toxic dose, what's known about the minimally effective dose, what's known about if it's a supplement, about like the pharmacology of that particular substance and how it's absorbed by the body and utilized by the body, or if it's a food, that's called bioavailability, digestibility, and how that product is effective. Now, if it's a pet food, we want to look at to make sure that the formulation that comes out of the software matches the product that ends up going into the pet, and that the levels of those nutrients, whether it's an amino acid from a protein, whether it's a vitamin like vitamin D, that the pet is able to extrapolate those nutrients from the food and get into their body. And we have known minimums and maximums and ideal ranges of those nutrients that we're trying to target. So companies should be doing studies to validate that or test it, make sure it's accurate. And now those tests shouldn't just be done in a research lab around the corner just because they have fancy equipment and charge money for it. There's gold standard companies that have developed these tests and have proven that they are accurate. And so every company that is outside of those gold standard companies that have done the work and done the original work need to be what's called validating or comparing their results against the gold standard. So we know that this testing that's being done over here at this corner lab is the same as the gold standard lab. And that's something that a lot of companies unfortunately are not doing. Now, claims that companies will make when they're looking to the greater scientific consensus, or they'll pull studies and say, look, our product is great and we have this in here because look at this study backs it up, and look at that study that backs it up, and look at this study that backs it up. Now, unfortunately, and I'm going to offer some generosity of assumptions here and say that most people don't know how to read a research study. They read the abstract, they glean general conclusions from it. They don't know how to actually break down the study, look at the statistics, look at the controls being utilized, and evaluate it to determine if the claims being made are substantial and robust enough with the sample size and robust enough with the statistics being applied in the study to make any sort of decisions on. A lot of the times, the researchers that are performing these studies are not intending for people to be drawing these types of broad, sweeping conclusions from their research. It's just meant to be a move the brick down the road of knowledge type of study. It's not meant to be a toss the brick over way down the road to the point where we can make broad clinical sweeping claims about the particular whatever's in that study. And so when you look at that study, we want to make sure that it's in the intended species of use. So if it's a dog product, is that study done in dogs or is it done in rats or mice? That's a big one. The other thing we want to look at is what statistics are being applied. Now, you sitting at home, unless you have a statistics background or taken a course in statistics, especially biostatistics, may not know if a chi-squared versus ANOVA is the appropriate test to be performed on that data. I myself have to turn to my statistician friends and ask them if this was the most appropriate statistical test to be performed. Now, since I've evaluated hundreds of studies and read them, thousands at this point, I have a decent sense for which studies should be used given what population data. However, sitting at home, that's harder to determine. So asking a friend with a scientific background who has an advanced knowledge of statistics could help. But usually we can back up and zoom out and say, is this person making broad sweeping claims about a study that is not in the intended species of use? And also, a lot of these studies now, thankfully, are open access. So you can pull them up and you can look and see, is what the person claiming actually what the author says in their conclusions or in the abstract of the study? A lot of people will do an AI search and it will pull studies based on keywords, and then their marketing teams or they themselves will use that to make the broad sweeping conclusions. So if the product claims don't match what the researcher is saying in their conclusions of their paper, it's a good example of research washing. I hope that's helpful. It's hard to know, and research washing is so hard. And unless you have training and a background in a scientific degree, it can be really challenging. We break it down a little bit more in Unbiased Bites. I'll try to be pulling some studies here and there to show you if this is a good example of research washing or not. And if you have any that you find, go ahead and send them my way, throw them in the comments here or over on social media, or if you're already a community member in Unbiased Bites, throw them in there and we can break them down a little bit closer. I'll also post a video of a breakdown I did in Instagram a while ago about a pet food that makes lots of claims that they shouldn't be, and that will help to make these things a little bit more clear because it is really confusing. But just maintaining that critical lens of, really, is this in the right species? How robust is the data? What's the sample size look like? Is it in 1 or 2 dogs or cats? Or, is it in thousands? Meta-analyses, big studies are better because we can overcome the biases that happen in smaller sample sizes. And also, who funded the study? Who was the researcher behind the study? Not to say that we should be discounting that evidence, but we just shouldn't be making decisions based on one study in general. We should be looking at what the greater scientific consensus, or many studies, many experts, and what they're saying. An easy way to spot research washing is if the individual throwing out the study and making the claim is saying things that are against the greater scientific consensus. That's probably a good example that research washing is being used. I know this was probably as clear as mud, but I hope it was maybe a little bit helpful, and continue to stay tuned and follow along. We'll keep trying to break this really complex subject down so that you aren't duped by research washing to the point where it could harm your beloved pets at home. Happy feeding.